In the 5th year of my marriage to Jane, I took a mistress. Ingsu asked me, now that your father-in-law has passed away and you've taken over all of the Liu family's business, with no one left to restrain you, why not marry 2 beautiful concubines to fulfill your regret of having no son? I shook my head. I love Jane deeply. She has been my benefactor, lifting me from a helpless little beggar to having a beloved wife and daughter in my arms. How could I betray her for some common flirtations outside? He asked again, then what about that mistress you keep in Apricot Blossom Alley? I fell silent for a long moment. She's different. I won't bring her home, and Jane will never know. Ingsu scoffed, as if thinking I was making trouble for myself. I took a sip of wine. You don't understand. Jane would never allow me to take a concubine. She has never been able to tolerate even a grain of sand in her eye. And besides, I couldn't bear to hurt her. Ever since that day, when I fainted from hunger at the gate of the Liu residence at age 10, and Jane rescued me and brought me into her home, I knew I owed her a lifetime. All these years, Jane, who was raised like a precious jewel in the Liu household, never looked down on my humble origins. She respects and loves me, and even bore me an adorable daughter. Old Master Liu treats me like his own son. Not only did he teach me to read, but he also personally mentored me in business. I, Zhao Cui, am not an ungrateful man, even if it's common for men to have multiple wives and concubines. I won't let Jane suffer such humiliation. This is the dignity I must give her. Ingsu paused for a moment, then snapped open his folding fan with a swish and waved it gently. He has always been straightforward, expressing his likes and dislikes to the extreme. Not long ago, he took a fancy to a respectable young woman. After talking her for a few days, he charmed her into becoming his concubine. Lately, he's been even more obsessed, showering her room with precious jewels and accessories without a second thought. So, he truly doesn't understand my stubborn nature. After thinking for a while, he seemed to have found a reason for my behavior. They say the wife is not as alluring as the concubine, and the concubine pales next to a secret affair. But this is fine too, with your mistress's skills. I bet you're having the time of your life. He dramatically slapped his forehead with a fan. Why didn't I think of such a brilliant idea earlier? Had I known, I wouldn't have rushed to bring Willow into the mansion and would have enjoyed a few carefree days with her outside. My expression turned cold as I slammed the wine cup onto the table. Ingsu, you've overstepped. Yvonne is proud and refined, nothing like the wanton woman you describe. In this lifetime, there are 2 women I can never forget. One is Jane, who nearly gave me rebirth, and the other is Yvonne Liu. When I first met Yvonne Liu, she was still a pampered darling of her family. She looked at me, a little beggar, with utter disdain and haughtily tossed a half-eaten steam bun at my feet. Eat it, it's yours. She didn't like me. She just saw me as an amusing plaything. Every time she watched me awkwardly eating the leftover meals she'd throw my way, she'd giggle with particular delight. Yet, it was because of her that I survived that winter. To me, she was the first ray of light that illuminated my dark and barren life. But that light vanished far too quickly. It was already 10 years later when I saw her again. That day, Ingsu had tricked me into visiting an unlicensed brothel. Furious, I was about to leave when the madam pushed the door open, leading in several women dressed like respectable ladies, and Yvonne Liu stood among them. Her once bold eyes were now cast down meekly, though the beauty mark at the corner of her eye remained as striking as ever. I froze, feeling as if my heart had been pierced, an unbearable ache spreading through me. In my mind, Yvonne Liu should have been willful and domineering, even heartless, delighting in toying with others. Not like this, flattering and pandering to patrons. It felt like watching a winter plum I had once only admired from afar, now plucked and trampled into the mud. I stood rigidly there, watching like a wooden puppet as the others drank and flirted. After 3 rounds of drinks, the men began to show their true colors. Even Ingsu pulled a half-resisting woman into his embrace. A wealthy young master seized Yvonne Liu's hand, trying to make her feed him wine. Her face instantly paled, though her body stiffened. Too terrified to move, She had no choice but to comply. I felt a fire burning in my chest, abruptly stood up, snatched the wine cup, and smashed it to the ground. By the time I realized what I'd done, Yvonne Liu was already trembling softly in my protective embrace. Everyone was stunned, and even Sue looked as shocked as if he'd seen a ghost. I had learned all about Yvonne Liu's past from the madam. When she was 6, her father, who originally ran a fabric shop, was swindled and lost all the family fortune in a gambling den. Her mother died of sheer rage, and her father, blinded by gambling losses, sold her for 10 taels of silver. I paid the madam a large sum of silver and obtained Yvonne Liu's deed of sale from her. When I placed these before Yvonne Liu, she trembled like a young beast exposed in the wild, forced to face everything alone. My heart ached with discomfort as I recounted the events of that year in meticulous detail. Don't worry, miss, this is what I owe you. You are my benefactor, and I will never harm you. Yet unexpectedly, Yvonne Liu's expression shifted instantly. What, now, it's your turn to play the savior before me? Feeling quite proud, aren't you? With reddened eyes, she shoved me out, standing outside the door. I listened to the muffled sobs within, my chest aching as if squeezed tightly, sour and numb. Later, I bought a courtyard house on Apricot Blossom Alley and settled her there. Yvonne Liu seldom showed me a warm expression. On her better days, she might offer me a smile, but if I misspoke even slightly, she would turn hostile right then and there. Yet I felt that this was how she ought to be. Our relationship truly broke through half a year ago. When Master Liu passed away, I was busy managing household affairs and hadn't visited her for a long time. That day, she was unusually quiet. Just as I was about to leave, she suddenly grabbed my sleeve, lowered her head, bit her lip, and said, "Zhao Cui, could you stay with me a little longer today? I had a nightmare last night, and thinking about it still frightens me." My throat tightened. Faced with her rare vulnerability, I felt oddly unsettled. She stood very close, the skin on her nape pale and delicate, her elegant powder scent lingering at my nostrils, stirring an inexplicable restlessness throughout my body. I cursed my own bewilderment inwardly as I lowered my head to speak. Yvonne Liu, noticing my prolonged silence, looked up at me, just by chance. Our lips met. Later, no one could tell who made the first move. We tangled all the way from the front hall to the bedroom. I never expected that Yvonne Liu, who usually enjoyed being capricious with me, would be so passionately fiery in bed. That fire burned from my body straight into my heart, consuming all my rationality. When I returned to the Liu residence that night, it was nearly midnight. The 7th day after Master Liu's passing had not yet arrived. His spirit tablet remained in the hall, and Jane kept a weary vigil before it. Hearing my footsteps, she opened her eyes, their corners still etched with the chill of bereavement, yet offered me a faint smile. "Husband, you're back. Were the shopkeepers difficult?" I stiffly nodded. "Manageable." Feeling somewhat guilty, I added, "Don't worry, I'll handle matters outside." Jane didn't notice anything unusual about me. After Master Liu's death, the vast Liu family enterprises fell to me to take over, though he had long kept me by his side during his lifetime, personally teaching me to manage the business. Once he passed, several seasoned shopkeepers leveraged their seniority to create constant obstacles for me. Aside from arranging the funeral, I was busy dealing with them. She simply thought I was exhausted from handling affairs outside this state. She led me back to our room and had the maid prepare bird's nest soup to nourish me. That night, I gazed at Jane sleeping on the other side of the bed and sank into deep thought. Yvonne Liu is already mine, and I cannot wrong her. But I also love Jane. On our wedding day, she made me promise that she would be the only one for me in this lifetime. I thought, as long as she never learns of Yvonne Liu's existence, I wouldn't be breaking my vow. I couldn't give Yvonne Liu a formal status, so I compensated her with other things. But she didn't care for such material possessions. She even strung together priceless southern pearls and carelessly tossed them on the table. It wasn't until I brought her younger brother from our hometown and arranged for him to attend the academy that Yvonne Liu became more emotional than ever upon hearing the news. In bed, She kissed me from my chest down, lying enchantingly beneath me, yielding to my every move. It was the first time she shed all her pride before me, along with an inexplicable sense of triumph. I felt deeply moved. I only wished to treat her even better, so she would be like this with me every day. I glared at Su. If you keep disrespecting her like this, we might as well not be brothers anymore. Seeing my anger, Su quickly wiped the smirk off his face. All right, my fault. But even if that's your plan, she is yours now. Are you really willing to let her be an unofficial mistress without status? I lifted my gaze. Qingyin isn't like those common women out there. She doesn't care about such things at all. In fact, she even scorns them. I understand her completely. Once, she was the treasured pearl cradled in her parents' hands. If not for that upheaval, she should have married into a family of equal standing and become the mistress of her own household. She disdains being a concubine. Yet, the more she is like this, the more I feel not only guilt, but also a growing respect for her. After leaving the Rui Pavilion, I headed straight home. As soon as I arrived at the Liu residence, Jane came out to greet me with our daughter. Annie took small steps, pattering over to me, looking up with adoring eyes. Father, why were you gone so long? Annie missed you so much she could die. She tugged at my sleeve and shook it, emphasizing her words in a milky, childish tone. Mother missed you too. We all missed you so much, we couldn't sleep at night. I glanced over. Jane's face flushed slightly, but she didn't deny it. This was the first time we'd been apart for so long since I entered the Liu residence. My heart felt inexplicably heavy. I forced a smile, picked Annie up, and avoided her gaze. By dinner time, it was already past Annie's usual bedtime. She barely ate a few bites before her head began to nod, her eyes struggling to stay open. Yet she still held tightly to my hand, making me promise not to leave the house tomorrow. I nodded in agreement. When the maid finally carried her away, I turned and saw Jane smiling at me. She pushed a bowl of noodles toward me and said softly, "Eat before the noodles get soggy." The Liu household had an unwritten tradition. Whenever Master Liu returned from business trips abroad, his late wife would always personally prepare a bowl of noodles for him. Now, Jane had taken up this custom. She must have kneaded the dough herself early this morning, waiting for my return so I could enjoy the noodles at their most springy and fresh. But today, as soon as I arrived in Linen Prefecture, Yvonne Liu's maid was waiting at the dock. She had arranged a feast at Apricot Blossom Alley, and after spending a long while with her, my stomach was already full. Seeing me struggle to eat, Jane frowned and asked, "Your letter said you'd be home this morning. Why were you so delayed? Was there trouble in Panshan Prefecture?" My body stiffened, and I set down my chopsticks. Everything went smoothly. I just ran into Su on my way back, and he dragged me off to the Rui Pavilion. Jane's frown deepened. Su's wife was her close childhood friend, and whenever he acted recklessly, she would come to Jane in tears. Over time, Jane's impression of Su had naturally soured. She snorted coldly, her eyes brimming with disdain. Last time Su's business hit a snag, it was Sister Grace who filled the gap with all her dowry and begged her family to pull strings for him, helping the Su family weather that crisis. Now, he's barely recovered, yet he's already making a grand show of taking a respectable concubine and parading her to humiliate Sister Grace. She's never been one to tolerate injustice, and now her words cut sharp. Husband, someone as faithless and ungrateful as Su isn't worth keeping ties with. We should keep our distance from him from now on. Though she spoke without ill intent, every word grated on my ears. A heaviness settled in my chest, and my voice rose unbidden. Brother Su has helped me greatly in the past. How can I distance myself over such a trivial matter? What would people say of me in business circles if word got out? But if he's this cold toward the wife who showed him such kindness, can we expect loyalty to anyone else? Enough. Why meddle in others' affairs? If I didn't know she was unaware of Yvonne Liu, I'd think she was using this to admonish me. Besides, ordinary wives wouldn't dare interfere with their husband's social connections outside the home. Jane dares to act so recklessly only because I'm the Liu family's live. And son, And, law, I cut her off sharply, rising with a darkened expression. I'm tired. I'll go wash up first. Take your time with the meal. I had never lost my temper with Jane before. She froze for a long moment before processing it, but she's never been one to hold grudges over small matters. Steam filled the bathroom as I sat in the wooden tub filled with hot water, leaning back comfortably against its edge. Jane proactively pushed the door open and entered. She made deliberate, loud noises, and seeing I still didn't react, simply took a washcloth and began scrubbing my back. I could no longer keep up the act and quickly stopped her. All right, any more scrubbing and you'll rub my skin raw. She chuckled. Brother Zhao, it's my fault. I know you're exhausted managing the family business, yet I still bother you with these matters. But you're not allowed to blame me, or I'll get angry too. I opened my eyes and stared steadily at Jane. She was the only child in the Liu family since childhood, raised like a treasure by Lord Liu. Back then, I had just entered the Liu residence and was terrified that this young mistress might give me a hard time. The first time I saw her, I was so nervous I couldn't even stand straight. But she peeked out from behind Lord Liu, tilted her head, and called me Brother Zhao. Later, whenever she made a mistake, she would gently nudge her forehead against my back. Brother Zhao, if you don't help me, I won't talk to you anymore. But after she turned 15, she never called me that again. Sometimes during our intimate moments, I'd tease her on purpose just to hear her say it with a mix of annoyance and anger. Over time, it became a little inside joke between us in the bedroom. I whispered softly, "It's my fault. I shouldn't have lost my temper with you." Amid the swirling steam, Jane's jade, white face flushed a delicate pink. Her eyes seemed to hold a pool of spring water, gazing motionlessly at me. After Master Liu passed away, Jane began her mourning period, while I busied myself navigating between the business world and Apricot Blossom Alley. It had been quite some time since we'd been intimate. My heart softened, and just as I was about to speak, Jane suddenly gasped in surprise. She leaned close to my ear, examining it carefully. "Husband, how did you get this red mark here?" In that moment, every hair on my body stood on end. To avoid unnecessary complications, I had always been particularly careful about boundaries. Whenever I became entangled with Yvonne Liu, I never left any marks on my body. Only today, perhaps because absence makes the heart grow fonder, we both longed to melt into each other. At the peak of our passion, she gave a firm suck behind my ear, and I, in the moment, had completely forgotten. I pretended nothing was wrong and rubbed it vigorously. Perhaps I'm not acclimated to the environment in Panshan Prefecture. Must have developed a rash at some point. Silence lingered behind me for a long while. The quieter it got, the more my mind conjured up wild suspicions and chaotic thoughts. But I dared not turn around, afraid she would see through my unease. Fortunately, it turned out I was just overthinking everything. After what felt like an eternity, Jane leaned her head on my shoulder and sighed deeply. "Brother Zhao, no matter how important business is, you must take care of your health. If anything happened to you, what would Annie and I do?" Completely unaware that my hard muscles only relaxed at that moment. Because of this scare, I avoided Apricot Blossom Alley for several days. I accompanied Annie to fly kites, running wild with her through the grass. I also helped Jane with household chores. Jane, busy reviewing account books, found my clinginess both amusing and exasperating. Yet her sparkling eyes were filled with the contentment of one immersed in happiness. Whenever I saw this, I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Jane was gentle, considerate, and thrifty. She loved and respected me, truly my better half in every way. And Yvonne Liu was enchantingly beautiful, vibrant and full of life. She could give me a different kind of thrill. I was confident I could balance the two perfectly, until this day, when the Su family matriarch held her birthday banquet, and I brought Jane along to attend, only to see Yvonne Liu there. She stood beside Ingsu's concubine, like one of the hosts, bowing to us. Only when she glanced at me, she gave an almost imperceptible wink. My whole body tensed up. I didn't dare move a muscle. I had no idea why she was here, and even less what she intended to do. Seizing a moment when no one was around, I pulled Yvonne Liu into the rockery in the garden and angrily demanded, "What are you doing here? Why didn't you tell me in advance? I always thought there was an understanding between us. This kind of arrangement was best for both of us." But now, I felt the danger of things spiraling out of control. I reminded her word by word once more. "Yvonne, didn't we agree long ago?" Facing my questioning, Yvonne Liu curled her lips mockingly. "Zhao Chui, where did your thoughts wander? Today is merely Sister Willow's first time hosting the Su family matriarch's birthday banquet, and she asked me to help lend some support. If I wanted to seek status, why would I beat around the bush here? I could have gone straight to the Liu residence long ago and made everything clear before your wife." Tears welled in her eyes, carrying the stubbornness of one who felt wounded. "I thought you understood me, but I never expected you to look down on me. Since you cherish your wife so deeply, why should we continue this entanglement? From today onward, let us part ways and pretend nothing ever happened between us." I caught the angered Yvonne Liu as she tried to leave, pulling her into my embrace despite her struggles. Only when she finally calmed down did I whisper softly by her ear, "It's all my fault. I misunderstood you." In truth, after calming down, I realized I had likely been mistaken. Yvonne Liu had always been proud. She would never willingly become a concubine and lower herself beneath Jane. I had underestimated her. To comfort her, I promised, "In a while, let's take your younger brother and return to Daizhou together." All right, truth be told, neither Yvonne Liu nor I are originally from Linshan Prefecture. Daizhou is our true hometown. We first met there, before both of us drifted destitute to foreign lands. But such is human nature. One must return home in silken robes to show former acquaintances one's present respectability, especially since Yvonne Liu had once left in such wretched circumstances. Back then, I was just a little beggar that everyone looked down on, utterly unable to help her. Now, as the de facto master of the Liu Trading Company, I am willing to lay everything at her feet, to let her return to her hometown in glory and splendor. This time, Yvonne Liu finally lifted her head, her voice trembling with emotion. "My dearest Chui, is everything you say true?" I hummed in affirmation, smiling at her. "Of course it's true. When have I ever deceived you?" Her response was a scalding kiss as she threw herself into my arms. The Su family's birthday banquet was both dignified and undignified. Normally, such occasions should be hosted by Lady Su. Budding Su has recently become infatuated with his favored concubine, even allowing her to mingle among the guests, outshining the mistress of the house. Unfortunately, she knows nothing of etiquette and has caused quite a few embarrassing scenes, though the guests said nothing to their faces. Privately, they all criticized the Su family for lacking propriety. I also felt Ning Su had gone too far this time. A wife is a man's face, someone who stands by him through thick and thin. Moreover, Lady Su isn't without connections. By humiliating her like this, isn't he afraid she might get fed up and simply leave him to return to her family? But Ning Su dismissed it. "It's just hosting a birthday banquet. Only women confined to the inner quarters care about such trivial matters of face. Besides, my wife has always been meek. Even if things get out of hand, she'll just cry in her room. Don't worry, nothing will happen." Yet none of us expected that the fire would eventually ignite. And worse, it would burn right back at me. Not long after, a servant came to inform Ing Su that a commotion had broken out among the female guests. When Ing Su and I rushed over, we saw Jane supporting the pale, faced Lady Su, who icily questioned the two before her. "I never knew the rules of your Su household were like this. A mere concubine, unfit for proper society, dares to interfere with the mistress of the house. Today, I must ask, does your Su family intend to favor the concubine and destroy the wife?" The scene fell into silence. No one dared utter a word. Even the Su family's matriarch, though her expression was grim, remained silent with a darkened face. The current emperor, born of the rightful empress, suffered greatly under the previous emperor's favored concubine before ascending the throne. In recent years, many high-ranking officials have been reprimanded or demoted by the furious emperor for favoring concubines over wives. with some cases even brought before the imperial court. If the court behaves this way, the common people naturally follow suit. So even if Ingsu was biased, he dared not brand himself with such a reputation. Seeing Ingsu refuse to speak a word, the Su family's favored concubine clutched her handkerchief, tears falling in words of frustration. Just then, Yvonne Liu, standing beside her, stepped forward. Why must you be so aggressive here, Madame Liu? What woman doesn't dream of marrying a good man and becoming a respected mistress of her household? But not everyone is as fortunate as you, Madame Liu, born into wealth and cherished by father and mother. Now that you've gained such an enormous advantage, yet fail to win your husband's favor, you instead bully us vulnerable women. Is this the upbringing of the Liu family? My heart leaped into my throat, irritated that Yvonne Liu didn't know her place. But seeing the redness at the corners of her eyes, my heart softened again. Just as I was about to intervene, Jane noticed Yvonne Liu. She glanced at her dismissively at first, then her gaze fixed on her hairbun. When she spoke again, her tone had turned cold. And who are you? What right do you have to speak here? Yvonne Liu still wore that familiar stubborn expression I knew so well. I am merely a weak woman standing up for the unfortunate. Rather than questioning me, Madame Liu, perhaps you should ask yourself, as a member of the Liu family, what right do you have to meddle in the affairs of the Su family? A helpless woman? Jane scoffed. What an eloquent, helpless woman you are, able to spin vanity and greed into tragic necessity, to dress up oppression and arrogance as righteous justification. You seem anything but weak to me. And this eagerness to defend this concubine, are you hoping to follow in her footsteps and become some family's mistress too? Yvonne Liu's eyes were already blazing crimson with rage. She took a deep breath, turning her gaze toward me in the crowd. Master Kui, I may not be from a noble family, but I will not tolerate such humiliation from your wife. The Liu family must give me an explanation today. Her eyes locked on me from afar. Her gaze was a turbulent mix of fury, shame, and disappointment. It felt like a silent, accusing question directed straight at me. My own heart grew heavy with discomfort. It had been so long since Yvonne had suffered such indignity after coming with me. She had already conceded so much. Why couldn't Jane just let her be? Watching the light slowly fade from her eyes, I could hold back no longer. Jane, apologize. Jane turned her head, looking at me in astonishment, as if she hadn't processed it all. I had to sharpen my tone. Must I repeat myself? As a guest, you've not only thrown the host's household into chaos, but also spread falsehoods to humiliate Miss Yvonne Liu. Apologize at once. Madame Su, who had remained silent nearby, seeing my anger, hurriedly explained. Master Chui, Jane only spoke up for my sake. Please don't blame her. She tugged at Jane bitterly, advising tactfully. Jane, today's mess is all due to my incompetence. Don't let this harm your marital bond for my sake. Perhaps you should return with Master Chui first, and let today's matter rest here. But Jane firmly gripped her arm. She didn't move an inch, just stared at me fixedly for a long time. What if I refuse? I sighed in disappointment. Jane, when did you become so arrogant and domineering? I stopped looking at her, and instead walked before Yvonne Liu, bowing apologetically with clasped hands. Miss Liu, I apologize for the distress you suffered today. As head of the Liu family, I, Chui, offer my sincerest apologies on behalf of my wife. I will have gifts sent to you shortly as compensation, and I earnestly hope you won't hold this against her. The atmosphere instantly grew deathly quiet. Many of the ladies and young misses present cast strange, lingering glances between Jane and me. I knew that by stepping forward as the head of the Liu family to apologize to Yvonne Liu, I was essentially declaring Jane guilty. But at this point, I could no longer concern myself with such matters. If Jane hadn't started this today, things wouldn't have escalated to such an embarrassing degree. Moreover, Yvonne Liu has never made any demands of me. I've already wronged her. I can't let her down again. Yvonne Liu curled the corner of her lips at me, her eyes regaining their triumphant sparkle and playful charm. Very well. With your words, Master Chui, I shall forgive your wife's rudeness today. However, I hope you will discipline her properly upon returning home to prevent such absurd behavior from recurring. Uffed. Jane burst into laughter, doubling over without a care for decorum. Everyone stared at her in astonishment, including me. I had never seen her react like this, and, for some reason, I suddenly felt a pang of panic. After a long while, she wiped the tears of laughter from the corners of her eyes, her gaze turning icy once more. What wrong have I done that requires your forgiveness? Miss Liu, you certainly think too highly of yourself. Today, as a woman of the Liu family, I hereby declare that from now on, you and this Lady Wan are forbidden from setting foot in the Liu Trading Company. With the birthday banquet of the Su family thrown into such chaos, naturally, no one else could stay. Yvonne Liu stood rooted to the spot, her face grim, trembling with rage. But under the watchful eyes of the crowd, I couldn't show her any closeness. I had no choice but to leave her behind and chase after Jane. After returning home, I deliberately gave Jane the cold shoulder. I didn't speak to her, didn't look at her, as if she didn't exist at all. Even when Annie clung to my side eagerly, I paid her little mind. Annie was still young and couldn't hide her emotions. After failing again to get my attention, she slumped into Jane's arms and cried, "Mother, why won't Father pay attention to Annie anymore? Did I misbehave? Does he not like me now?" Jane gently stroked Annie's head without even glancing at me. "Annie is wonderful, the best behaved child in the world. If others don't appreciate you, that's their flaw." After she lulled Annie to sleep, I could no longer hold back. I stood before her and said in the coldest tone, "Don't you have anything to say to me?" "No, Jane Liu." My temper flared instantly. "When you acted so recklessly at the Su residence, I intervened for your own good, to preserve the Liu family's dignity. Yet you publicly contradicted me. Do you not see me as your husband, as the head of this household?" Jane's lips curled into a mocking smile. "And what about you, Zhao Chui? Do you see me as your wife? When you trampled my dignity today, was it truly for my benefit, or for that Miss Liu?" She pulled out the pearl, inlaid hairpin from her hair, and held it before my eyes. "If I recall correctly, the jewelry batch you imported from Panshan Prefecture hasn't been released by Liu's yet. Tell me, why is Yvonne Liu already wearing it?" My expression froze. That day, to please Yvonne Liu, I had given her the most valuable hairpin from that batch while we were in bed. Panshan Prefecture borders the sea, making its jewelry distinctly different from elsewhere, and Jane was so meticulous that she even noticed such a minor discrepancy. But at this moment, I absolutely could not admit it. Extremely guilty, I feigned anger and shouted, "It's just a hairpin of similar style. When did you become so suspicious? Do you actually suspect I have some involvement with her?" Jane stared at me intently for a long while before finally shaking her head. "Not that. It's just, everything is too coincidental. Zhao Chui, I don't care what relationship you have with that Miss Liu. Since you could disregard my dignity for her, I can do the same. I just want you to know that respect is mutual. It's not because I'm your wife that I must be beneath you." Seeing the seriousness in her eyes, my heart skipped a beat. Jane is usually understanding and never makes things difficult for me, but sometimes she has these inexplicable stubborn streaks over trivial matters. She's like a calm pond, usually placid and undisturbed. Only when encountering an obstructive rock does one see the turbulent currents she stirs up. A strange unease began to spread within me. I couldn't pinpoint where this feeling came from, but I couldn't back down now. I could only follow my instincts, growing more self-righteous. "Jane, why dress it up in such noble words? Since ancient times, the husband leads the wife. If you'd married another man, would you act this way? In the end, it's only because I, Zhao Chui, am the Liu family's live and son in law that you look down on me like this." I left the Liu family's residence and went to Apricot Blossom Alley, not returning for the night. Besides comforting the wronged Yvonne Liu, I also wanted to make Jane see my stance clearly through this. I wanted to make her suffer, to make her uneasy, to make her understand that I, Zhao Chui, am not some spineless live and son in law. I intend to reassert my authority as the husband, Even Yvonne Liu remarked, "You're just too accommodating. You should have made her realize long ago that you're the one in charge of the Liu family now, no longer that little beggar at her beck and call." I knew she was still upset about the Sioux Manor incident, so I simply ordered the servants to bring in the items I'd prepared earlier. A dazzling array of jewelry and hair ornaments glittered before us. There was also the coveted shimmering brocade, a fabric women yearn for, worth a tale of gold per bolt. These are all the latest goods from the Liu family. Yvonne, you needn't step foot in the Liu household. I'll lay everything you desire right before you. Yvonne Liu's gaze burned into me with an intensity that was startling. She turned and went behind the screen, soon emerging before me draped in a gauzy, silk-like gown. In that moment, all my reason deserted me. I threw myself at her like a madman. We lost ourselves in each other for what felt like an eternity, and by the time I came to my senses, it was already the third day. Yvonne Liu saw me to the door, gazing at me longingly. Must you go? These days of passionate entanglement had gradually melted her cold facade away in my presence. I felt a flicker of pride, but replied firmly, "Didn't we agree to go to Daijo together? Since we'll be away for so long, I must make all the necessary arrangements first." Yvonne Liu gave a gentle smile and reluctantly let me leave. When I returned to the Liu residence, I sensed an oddly strange atmosphere. The maids and servants all wore grave expressions, as if something serious had happened in the household. Upon asking, I learned that during my absence, Annie had suddenly fallen gravely ill. Her condition had been critical at the time, and she nearly didn't pull through. Looking at Annie's pale little face, my heart felt as if it were being squeezed. Why did no one come to tell me about such a major incident? "Jane, I am Annie's father." Jane's gaze toward me was icy cold. "What right do you have to be Annie's father? Can you tell me where you've been these past few days when she was in trouble?" All my words stuck in my throat. Overwhelmed by guilt and shame, I stammered, Where else would I be? There was an issue with a shipment at Liu Corporation. I rushed to handle it. Do you think I was doing something outside?" Jane closed her eyes, as if she could no longer bear it. When she opened them again, her eyes held an unmistakable look of disgust. "Zhao Cui, you truly disgust me." The door slammed shut. Rebuffed and humiliated, I stood frozen in place. I didn't understand why Jane had such a strong reaction, but instinctively, I felt something must have happened. It wasn't until I met Sue that my uneasy suspicions were confirmed. That day, when Annie suddenly fell ill, Jane sent someone to find me. Seeing how critical the situation was, I had no choice but to tell her you were at Apricot Blossom Alley. My mind went blank with a buzzing sound. So that's how it was. So that's it. In a state of extreme panic, I grabbed Sue by the collar and roared, "How could you tell her such a thing?" I can't imagine how Jane would feel knowing that Annie was fighting for her life while I was fooling around with another woman. What would she feel? Even more, I can't imagine how she would face me from now on. My mind was a mess, flooded with all sorts of chaotic thoughts. Yet it seemed I had no clue, unable to grasp anything. "Zhao Cui," Sue gripped my shoulders. "Calm down. It's common for a man to have multiple wives and concubines. You're just keeping a mistress on the side, not flaunting her in front of Jane Liu. Why make such a big fuss?" I shook my head and muttered, "It's different. Jane is different." "How is it different? Women are all the same. They may talk tough, but their hearts are soft. Besides, with children as a bond, they're even less willing to make too much of a scene." Sue wore a dismissive expression. "Look at my Grace. No matter how much she cries, she still obediently plays the role of Mrs. Sue. Is that really how it'll be?" I stared stubbornly at Sue, seeking an answer, yet also craving reassurance. Sue maintained his usual cavalier demeanor. "Trust me on this. Go back and soothe her properly. Once she figures it out, everything will clear up like after a storm." I believed Sue's words, or perhaps I had no choice but to believe, because I could no longer bear any other outcome. Contrary to what Sue said, Jane didn't cry or make a scene, nor did she seem particularly heartbroken. She was just icily distant, unwilling to even speak to me. She even had the maid move my bedding to the study, forcing us to sleep separately. She seemed unusually busy, buried in account books, with no spare attention left for me. I tried repeatedly to explain myself, but the coldness in her eyes wounded me before the words could leave my lips. I couldn't bring myself to continue. Fortunately, beyond this, she took no further action. My anxious heart finally settled somewhat. Perhaps Ingsu was right. Women eventually grow accustomed to such heartaches after a period of sorrow. Even though Ingsu acted so terribly, his wife, who was utterly heartbroken, never left him, and all I did was keep a mistress. It probably shouldn't be such a big deal, but saying that aside, I've already resolved to make a clean break with Yvonne Liu. I don't want to hurt Jane anymore. Just as I hadn't yet taken any action, Yvonne Liu came to me first. Looking at her, a surge of fury rushed to my head. What are you doing here? Who told you to come? Yvonne Liu was taken aback, seemingly unprepared for my reaction. Her face stiffened unpleasantly before she forced a smile. Zhao Cui, didn't we agree to return to Daizhou together? Have you forgotten? I paused, intending to clarify things but hesitating. Yvonne Liu had shown me kindness, and now I was about to abandon her. I truly felt guilty toward her. Perhaps this trip to Daizhou could be my way of fulfilling her final wish. I took a deep breath and made a promise. I remember. I'll notify you once I've sorted things out. How long will that take? My dearest Cui, I've waited far too long already. We'll set out in 3 days. When I told Jane I needed to leave for a while, I expected her to question me, but she said nothing, only curling her lips into a mocking smile. It was Annie who reacted strongly. She first snorted coldly at me, then puffed her cheeks like a steamed bun before stomping over to bury herself in Jane's arms. Ever since Annie recovered from her illness, she had grown distant toward me. Even when I tried my utmost to cheer her up, she no longer clung to me as she once did. Watching the mother and daughter walk away, a pang of sorrow tugged at my heart. I thought to myself, once I fulfill my promise to Yvonne Liu, I will never leave these two again. For the rest of my life, I will spend every moment making it up to them. Daizhou was even more bustling and prosperous than I remembered. When I left, I was just a little beggar boy that everyone looked down upon. My memories were filled with nothing but hunger and cold. Now I'm dressed in fine clothes, spending lavishly, and greeted by countless smiling faces. But truth be told, I'm not as happy as I imagined I would be. Yvonne Liu, however, was overjoyed. Her parents had passed away, but her clansmen were still around, facing her triumphant return home in fine attire. They welcomed her with the utmost enthusiasm. She experienced an unprecedented level of glory. That night, she once again knocked on my door, wearing a sheer silk dress. She threw herself into my arms, her words dripping with tenderness. My dearest Cui, thank you. From now on, I'll never doubt your feelings for me again. Since you're willing to go to such lengths for me, I'm willing to make sacrifices for you too. I'll lower myself beneath Jane and enter the Liu residence as a concubine. After I enter the Liu residence, you mustn't look down on me. You must still love and cherish me, just as you do now. I stared at Yvonne Liu for a long time, and sensing that she genuinely felt wronged, I couldn't help but feel a touch of irony. Ingsu had long warned me, saying Yvonne Liu would never be content as just a mistress. Back then, I was brimming with confidence, convinced she was aloof and proud, nothing like those vulgar women, but it turns out I never truly saw her for who she was. Seeing my lack of response, Yvonne Liu gave me a coquettish, reproachful glance, her hand sliding down my chest. My dearest Cui, why aren't you saying anything? I stepped back and forcefully shook off her hand. You're not the same as before. Learn to be more dignified. Since deciding to cut ties with Yvonne Liu completely, I've kept my distance from her. In the past, I couldn't get enough of her, longing to be entwined with her every moment. Now, I realized she wasn't as perfect as I'd imagined. Her complexion wasn't all that fair. Her waist wasn't as slender as Jane's. The scent of her powder was always too strong, giving me a headache. I don't know if I was under some spell before. Why, I was so infatuated with her. I missed Jane and Annie like never before. The moment I left Linen, it felt like a piece of my heart had been carved out, aching and itching all at once. I didn't want to stay here a moment longer. I just wanted to hurry back to the two of them, mother and daughter. Yvonne Lu noticed something was off and asked, "What's wrong with you? You haven't been yourself for the past few days." By now, there was nothing left to hide. "Yvonne, I've done all I can for you. The money I've given is enough for you to live comfortably. From here on, you'll have to walk your own path." "What do you mean?" Yvonne Lu froze, looking at me in disbelief. I turned my face away, hardening my heart. "I can't let Jane and Annie be hurt anymore. You and I are over from now on. From this moment, we go our separate ways." Zhao Chui. Behind me came Yvonne Lu's heart-wrenching scream, but my steps did not pause. I pushed the door open and left directly. On the way back, I felt an unprecedented excitement. I had already figured out how to beg Jane for forgiveness. I would kneel before her, confess my momentary lapse of judgment, and promise never to make such a mistake again. Jane has always been proud, and I knew she wouldn't forgive me easily. But I am willing to spend the rest of my life proving myself to her. Yet, despite all my calculations, I never could have anticipated what happened next. Upon returning to Linen, the first people I met weren't Jane and Annie, but the Lu family's shop managers. They blocked the city gate, swarming around me with anxious faces the moment they saw me. "Master, you must do something about Madam. A few days ago, she suddenly ordered us all dismissed and brought back some of the old managers." I was stunned, only then realizing that all those present were the managers I had promoted after taking over the Lu family business. My heart skipped a beat, but I forced myself to act calm and composed. "Don't panic yet. Let me go back and assess the situation." But when I reached the Lu residence gate, I couldn't enter. The steward, who always greeted me with smiles, now stared coldly. "Master Kui, this is no place for you." I looked at him in disbelief. "Uncle Lu, you must be joking. I'm your son-in-law." The steward sneered mockingly. "My young mistress submitted the divorce papers to the magistrates days ago. The Lu household no longer has a son-in-law." "What?" I stood frozen, my mind reeling as if filled with buzzing bees. An icy chill spread from my chest throughout my entire body, so cold that I shivered involuntarily. Impossible. How could Jane abandon me? I refused to believe it. I needed to ask her for an explanation. "Let me see Jane. Let me in." But the steward ordered servants to drive me away, and the Lu gate creaked shut. That door I thought would always open for me if I turned back now stood firmly closed before me. I kept vigil outside the Lu residence for 3 days before I saw Jane again. When she appeared before me again, she was as elegantly captivating as ever, as if my presence meant nothing to her. Realizing this, the ache in my chest grew sharper. "Jane, I was wrong." I hung my head and stepped forward, reaching for her hand. I don't know what came over me, but I've regretted it. I'd already decided to end things with Yvonne Lu. "Jane, I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you and Annie. Please don't cast me aside. Annie needs her father too." Jane took a step back, her eyes and brows etched with scorn. "Zhao Chui, do you have any idea how I felt that day when Annie was critically ill, and I went to Apricot Blossom Alley, only to find you tangled up with Yvonne Lu? I felt ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. We grew up together. My father treated you like his own son, raised and taught you, never wronged you in any way. I entrusted my whole heart to you, believing we'd spend our lives together. Even Annie adored you. She was so ill she could barely breathe, yet she kept tugging my hand, asking why her father hadn't come to see her, wondering if you didn't love her anymore. What were you doing then? You were being intimate with another woman. How could you forget you were my husband, Annie's father? Even now, you're still lying. You took Yvonne Lu to Daizhou, letting her return home in glory. Zhao Chui, you're utterly hypocritical and selfish. Don't you think your insincere repentance sounds disgusting? It's not like that. Jane, listen to me. It felt like a hole had been torn in my chest, choking me so much I couldn't even form a complete sentence. I went to Daizhou with Yvonne Lu, only to end things with her there. Nothing happened between us during that time. I'd already decided to come back and live properly with you and Annie. Jane, believe me, I'm not lying to you this time. Slap. A harsh slap across my face cut off all my words, trapping them in my throat. Yet the stinging pain on my face somehow made me feel a bit better. I actually laughed. Well struck. Jane, if you're still angry, hit me a few more times. No, I'll hit myself. Punish me however you want. Just don't leave me. All right, I truly can't live without you and Annie. I kept slapping my own face. Yet my eyes remained fixed on Jane, trying to glimpse any trace of emotion on her face. But no matter how desperately I pleaded, she remained utterly unmoved. Jane merely watched me calmly, the earlier surge of emotion seeming to slowly drain away. My heart grew increasingly panicked. Tears I hadn't noticed began to fall, dripping steadily onto the ground. Don't be like this. Jane, I beg you, please don't do this. She stared at me steadily, as if looking at a complete stranger who meant nothing to her. Zhao Cui, I told you on our wedding day, if you show no affection, I will end this. Don't waste your efforts anymore. Whether your remorse is real or not means nothing to me now. You were the one who shattered my trust in you. You destroyed all my hopes for this marriage. So, I'm taking everything back, completely expelling you from my life. Zhao Cui, it's best if we never see each other again, because the very thought of you makes me sick. She turned away from me and walked farther and farther off, until her figure vanished completely from my sight. I clutched my chest and collapsed to the ground. Suddenly, everything felt meaningless. From that day on, I began drifting between taverns, drowning myself in alcohol day after day, seeking nothing but oblivion, because only in dreams could I return to the past, back to when I hadn't made my mistakes. When everything was perfect, I could sense many people laughing at me. They said I deserved it, to fall from the esteemed head of the Liu family to this broken, lost wreck. Truth be told, I thought I deserved it too. When drunk, I'd even go out of my way to provoke others. Each time they beat me, I felt a strange relief, as if physical pain could somehow dull the ache inside. Eventually, more and more people simply called me a madman. I didn't care. Sometimes I'd even laugh and agree. One day, as I stumbled drunk out of a tavern like any other, I ran straight into someone. Yvonne Liu had grown much thinner since we last met. Her skin stretched taut over high cheekbones, giving her a sharp, harsh appearance. The moment she saw me, a light ignited in her eyes, like a cornered wolf with nothing left to lose. Zhao Cui, that wretched Jane of the Liu family. She stole all my money. She claimed the gifts you gave me bore the Liu family merchant mark, accused me of stealing from them, and had me thrown into prison. You must help me restore my dignity. I was too drunk to make sense of her words. Even if I had understood, I wouldn't have cared. I tried to step around her, but Yvonne Liu's shout followed me. Zhao Cui, stop right there. I'm carrying your child. Are you really going to abandon us? I spun around, staring strangely at her belly as if it concealed some monster. A throbbing pain began at my brow, pulsing relentlessly, until my heart ached and sank. Seeing my reaction, Yvonne Liu drew near with delight, whispering temptations in my ear like a demon. The Liu family's growth to this day owes much to your efforts. Zhao Cui, how dare Jane Liu just cast you out like this? Zhao Cui, you must pull yourself together. The child and I will stand by you. We'll reclaim everything we've lost together. No, I stumbled backward in panic. I only ever had Annie. She was the only child between Jane and me. How could I betray Jane? Betray Annie? I mustn't. I gripped Yvonne Liu's throat with force, my eyes flooding with rage. Get away, you monster. Stop haunting me. I will never betray Jane. By the time I came to my senses, Yvonne Liu was screaming on the ground, a pool of blood spreading beneath her skirt. I didn't even glance back, just fled in blind terror. I never learned what became of Yvonne Liu, but she didn't let me off either. Days later, a group of men stormed into my home and dragged me out. They beat me savagely to the ground, demanding 1,000 taels of silver, or they'd break my legs. In the end, they certainly didn't get their money. After breaking both my legs, these people simply walked away. It wasn't until I met Su later that I learned the whole story. Yvonne Lu's younger brother was no good either. He gambled away every bit of property left for the siblings and ended up deep in debt. That scoundrel, afraid the casino enforcers would kill him, not only sold Yvonne Lu to a brothel to pay his debts, but also set his sights on you, which is why those people came after you. I sat curled in a corner and let out an indifferent oh. The injury was too severe. My leg bones didn't heal properly, leaving me with a permanent limp. Every time I stand for too long, the pain becomes excruciating. Su sat with me and stayed silent for a long while. After a long pause, he gave a bitter smile. A few days ago, Grace divorced me. Her departure seemed to take all my luck with her. And lately, my business has hit another snag. But this time, there's no Grace to help me without a second thought. Zhao Cui, tell me, is this my retribution? I didn't answer, just stared blankly at the street ahead. A carriage passed by, its curtain lifted to reveal Jane sitting inside with Annie, her smile radiant as a flower. A clear child's voice drifted from the carriage. Mother, I want to see the lanterns at the Lantern Festival too. Mother, please say yes. The woman's voice held sweet resignation, as if worn down by pleading. Stop shaking me. Stop, I promise. Any more, and this old mother will fall apart. The carriage gradually faded into the distance, taking everything with it. Gazing at the now empty street, I murmured, yes, those who betray true hearts always meet their retribution.